Hi, everybody, and welcome to this special episode of the Dr. Keith Darrow podcast, where we welcome Dusty Potter. And look, if you've been in hearing healthcare, even if you've only been around for a few years, I think you know Dusty Potter. You've at least heard of him because he's done such great work, not only on the practice side and built a bit of an empire, but then decided to sort of go a different route into OMS, and he's got all sorts of projects up his sleeve. But Dusty, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, look, I think it's exciting times. I think that you've got some great stuff coming out that we're going to hit upon, whether it be the new CRM, the OMS, right? All these words that any business owner or director of operations understands and desperately needs to run efficiently. But look, we got to back up, because as far as I know, you and I met about 4 or 5 years ago now. And at that time, the focus was really on practices. So how did that journey begin? And then how did we get to here?
Yeah. I started in this profession in 2000. I'm a second generation hearing instrument specialist. Started out working for and training under my mom, who prior to that was a nurse. So kind of had an unusual little training at the beginning of my career. Her company was bought out by a gentleman named Mark Brumback, who owned Hearing Aid Express. And he at that time had 14 locations in Texas. And I worked for him, worked my way up to be the South Texas area manager. In 2007, I opened my first practice. It was time to leave. There was nowhere for me to go, as far as up. Anyway, so I started my first practice, ear level communications. Came back to my hometown of Wichita Falls, started from there, grew that to 6 locations. And then fortunate timing allowed me to acquire Hearing Aid Express back in 2015. Okay. So then at that point, yeah, I was a 22 location, animal. And really, in a lot of ways, it was extremely exciting. When I left Hearing Aid Express, I told Mark, I'll be back one of these days, and that was a big deal for me. But in a lot of ways, I felt like a dog that caught a car. All of a sudden, I had all these locations.
Sorry, I had not heard that expression before.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, it was, you chase this thing forever, but now I've got it. What do I do with it? And I had it, and I was when I took over Hearing Aid Express, they were still using paper ledgers, copper phone lines, a database system that required like an actual, phone call with like the AOL startup noise and everything between servers for all of this stuff to work. And I was using a cloud-based OMS that was out on the market. And, I converted them to this. But one thing that I saw is there were problems there as far as the scalability, but then also the biggest thing, like what started like this whole life change was my southernmost location was a 7.5 hour drive from my home city. So, I'm driving down I-45 in between, Dallas and Houston, heading down to the Houston area. And I need to see where my sales are at for the day. And I go to open my cell phone, and I mean, there was so much pinching, dragging, that sort of thing. You really shouldn't be doing that at 80 miles an hour, but it's
I was going to let that one slide. No, I just don't want to point.
Definitely dangerous, no matter what system you're using, and it's not endorsed by us. But I'm just saying, with 5 hours, between cities and that kind of thing, when you're on the road in Texas, really being able to take a look and see where your sales are at for that day, and as a business owner, whether or not you're going to make payroll this month, that sort of thing. I mean, it was a stressor, and that was just life back then. And so
I think you're speaking to the point of OMSs, which are right. I mean, they may be great, maybe even that's a stretch, but they might be user friendly when it comes to the provider. But as a fellow business owner, oh my gosh, what it takes to get to a number. And then, do I even believe the number? I mean, that's a whole different question.
Well, that's a whole different thing,
right? Because it's junk in, junk out, and
and that's that. And so, I mean, the initial thing was mobile usability, and also I want the first thing I see in this software to be where my business is at right now with all the critical information I need. I mean, that was number one. And then And then marketing automation started becoming a part of what we're seeing out in the world, and the way things are integrating. And as I learned that, and I mean, I went through marketing agency after marketing agency after marketing agency, and a lot of it was because it was so hard for me to find someone who really understood the patient journey in the office, and what motivates somebody to come in for the first time, and what keeps them coming back, and all of that. Understanding that and understanding marketing, like finding that combination was really tough. And it's still a little silly in our business. I mean, you'll look out there, and there are people who are still, their biggest sale of the year is they're giving away $10 turkeys with a mailer. It's the crazy, like, that's not a system. That's just a throw out, mail and pray. And anyway, I don't know.
No, it is. I love what you're talking about, which is so many things wrapped up in just the last few minutes, which is spike marketing is stupid. I can't think of a better word, because then your business is going to run on these spikes, and your life is just going to be a hellhole.
And
right?
That doesn't even mention what that does to your cash flow. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, what it does to the cash flow, what it does to morale, what it does to your stress, right? What it does to the number of gray hairs or the lack of hair, right? I mean, it's just, there's so much that goes into spike marketing that is just not, it's not a system. It really is just every few times a year, I'm going to throw stuff at the wall and I'm going to see what sticks, right? That's not the way to run a business or run a practice. So you have to be able to systematize that. And then you were also starting to touch upon nurturing and trying to understand the patient journey. I've been down that path too. I've abandoned it, but it's like, I can't find somebody to build a website who is hitting my patients' hot button items, that's speaking to them, that's speaking to their journey, not making it about me. So I went and started making my own websites, right? Fortunately, I, found somebody along the way who understood that, but that's a different story. The point is like, come on, people, there's 42 million people to serve. We're not doing enough. We have to start talking to them.
Right. No, exactly. And there's so many different reasons why somebody would go to Google and search for what we do. And there are so many different ways they will search for it, because they're looking for a different piece of what we do. But at the end of the day, when they come in, I mean, the most ridiculous thing to me in hearing aid in the world with hearing care and all of this is so many practices lead with the product. And the thing is we know when you're in the office, I mean, you're in the business of, in order to treat the patient, you have to sell them a product, but it's a product they don't want to buy. They don't want to tell anyone that they have. They don't want to, and they will put it off as long as possible. And then as soon as it doesn't work for 10 minutes, they are the most angry consumer you're ever going to meet. I mean, we're in a very unique set of circumstances. So, just taking something that worked for an optometrist, which is probably the closest profession to ours in terms of office flow, you just plug that into a hearing care, it doesn't work. And leading with the product makes no sense, because that's the first thing the only thing you're trying to sell initially is an appointment. You're just trying to sit down and have a meeting. From there, the hearing loss is what it is. The treatment is what it is. And, it's a conversation between two people, and that cannot be well automated, but so many parts of this journey can be, so.
So how do you go from, we're skipping a lot to say the least. Like, so you've got all these practices, you're seeing these problems with the OMS, number one. Then you realize that we're not properly communicating with our patients, that we need to help patients along their journey, right? And if we don't do it, who's going to? And we have to do it in a way that shows our value, not our product. But how do you go from all these clinics to them being able to do all of this? Because I don't know how that's managed.
Okay, so here's how it went. Is really the initial goal. It was just that I couldn't find a tool for my practice that worked the way I needed it to work. Once we started building out our tool, that showed me, first off, I fell in love with really nerdy things like fields of data flowing from one place to another, and the way things pivot and the way things flow. And I developed a real passion for that. I mean, and so that's an important part of this journey in the last few years of my career for sure, because I love working with patients. I love running a company. I don't love the stress that comes with an extremely large company and all the different holes in the dam you got to stick your finger in and that kind of thing. But there are things about it that I'm very passionate about, and all of that is there. But I love software. I love workflows. I love seeing these things go together. And so, after the 2020, which was a number on a lot of us, and the larger you were, the kind of the harder that was to handle. I mean, my payroll was $110,000 twice a month, and so all of a sudden, when you're in a shutdown period, I mean, that's a terrifying place to be. Anyway, as we went through that, it really, but I kept working through the OMS, and during the shutdown period, we figured out how to serve our patients, not quite as well virtually, but built all the workflows to get this done. We built in a Zoom integration into Amplify OMS. We did a lot of things then, and I just fell more and more in love with doing that. So I had an opportunity to sell Hearing Aid Express. I retained my original Wichita Falls location and the 2 satellites of it. And at this point, now I have time to work on websites and marketing automation and the office management system. And I have a great practice here in Wichita Falls with a couple of fantastic providers. And I mean, the thing runs on autopilot. So I've got time to work on this for other practices as well.
So you just hit on a number of key points that, and I think a lot of the people who actually listen to the podcast are more practice owners than even providers. And I want you to just talk a little bit more about finding your clarity, right? Because that's what it sounds like in the pandemic. I think we all had to stop, take inventory, and really find the silver lining. So yes. Your silver lining, it sounds like, was offing the majority of the practices that were no longer really serving your needs while you were finding this other passion. And so what was that like to sort of hone in? And then, look, what I think is great about Dusty and this Amplify program is you actually do own a practice. You're not just one of these vendors who isn't in hearing healthcare, doesn't know what it's like to treat a patient, doesn't understand patient flow. So go ahead. I know I asked a lot.
No, yeah. In that process, I would say, first off, I found my clarity in that I just love data. I mean, I love it. I wish I had really wanted to pay attention in algebra in college. I was just wanting to get out of that class. But now, like all of these things, it's every piece of software you ever see on the internet is actually just a database presented to you in different packages. It's so nuts when you think about it. And I love that. And that's not everybody. And I know, sure. But that's me. And I discovered that's me. And so that kind of gave me some clarity as far as what I wanted to do with my life, really. But also, Amplify OMS didn't start as a software company trying to find a niche. This was a practice trying to develop the perfect tool. And I didn't want to lose the passion for that. So, I mean, I could have easily, my Wichita Falls location, believe it or not, outperformed any other location in my company, but that was because I had my hands around it. And there's a lot to be said there too. That could be its own podcast. Sure. But that was always one of my best locations, and it required the least effort for me to run it because my personality, my way of patient care, my flow was already stamped all over that thing. And so there was that side of things. As we move into the OMS world of everything, also as this company develops, I want to make sure that I don't lose touch with what it is to run the practice. And it's also really important with something like this to have a test kitchen, and that's got to be me. If something doesn't work, it costs me money. It doesn't cost our clients money that are out there doing things. If something doesn't work, it's my headache until we fix it. And that happens a lot. I know when we did our QuickBooks Online integration a couple of years ago, I don't think I slept for a month, but it was just, anyway, but maintaining the practice for me, first off, we have a large number of patients here in Wichita Falls, and we're happy to continue serving them. And I love still being involved, but also it's a critical component of making everything else work properly and vetting it before it goes to anybody else.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think the most important business advice I give anybody is if you're going to take advice from somebody, they better know what they're talking about. They better know the experience, right? If you're going to talk to somebody about an OMS, they better be using it. They better understand patient flow. If you're going to talk to them about CRM, they better understand the patient journey, right? So, and they have to really know it firsthand. It can't just be secondhand. Oh yeah, my clients have experienced. No, I've done this. I've experienced it, and I have it in my clinics. And I love what you said. It probably drives some of the people you work with nutty, which is that test kitchen effect where you can really work out the details. So you might create a little bit of chaos in your own clinics, but that's for the benefit of everybody else.
Right. And then, I mean, it also helps drive innovation as far as you watch the clinic, you watch inefficiencies in workflows, you watch things that you watch someone do the same thing over and over and over again. And why do I have a human doing this? That's what computers are good at, is doing the same thing over and over again reliably, and so you find all those holes and you fill them. And that does help my staff because as we move through there, it's my staff, the human time is spent engaging with and serving the patients, and the computers are doing the job of the menial tasks that need to get done day to day.
Right. Anything that takes away from patient care needs to be offloaded, needs to be fixed. And you can't just continue to hobble along because you're not going to run a marathon with that peg leg,
Right. Exactly.
So let me ask you, the OMS, how does that thing come to be? Where do you come up with this is great running in my practice, I should give it to other people?
Well, I mean, there's money, but I mean, but no, the real thing is, and this was part of the challenge initially, rolling it out to other clinics. You don't put this much effort and this much passion into something without hoping that it turns into something larger.
Fair.
I mean, that's brass tacks.
Okay.
But as we move forward with that, what opened my eyes is not everyone wants to run a clinic the way I do. And they were also frustrated with a lot of things on the market because they couldn't find anything that was just perfect for their practice. And so what that did in that first year and a half of sharing it with other practices was enable me to start coming up with a concept of, no, open this up, allow someone to structure this however the heck they need to structure it, build the backbone, give them the best practices. But I mean, we have practices using this that have no physical locations whatsoever, that are completely mobile, because remember, we started with being mobile friendly, but then we have ENT offices that are using it, that are a very stable brick and mortar medical environment. So it, and those differences of approach, and, I unabashedly, I started out and really kind of am a retail guy. I mean, we're passionate about best practices and patient care and all of that sort of thing, but I'm a second generation dispenser. I'm not bashful about the fact that what I really do for a living is I sell hearing aids. I mean, and I don't think there's any shame in that.
Absolutely not.
So anyway,
look, if you want to change somebody's life, at the end of the day, there has to be a purchase and sale in order to do that. So
nothing in this world happens until someone sells someone something, and that's just how it is. So.
Yep. So we all have to get over it. So speak to the customization aspect, because I know from the OMSs that I've dealt with over time, and I've met with a lot of the CEOs of these companies, it's like, but I want it this way. Oh, well, we can't do it. That's not what it was designed to do. Like, I run the practice. Yeah. I have certain needs. So how does that work? Because that could also drive you and your team crazy.
Can. But it doesn't. No, and we've worked through a lot of that. So there's a couple of different stages as far as the customization go. As far as workflow in the office, all that sort of thing. Of course, we've got a task manager built in, and you can determine when that triggers and how that triggers as far as assigning tasks to different employees to get things done. In terms of, how you communicate with your patient database. There's direct communication like SMS and email and that sort of thing. And you can do that with manual typing, or you can set up templates to have them go out. As far as the actual structure of your company, we can certainly take any file of your hearing aid pricing from your manufacturers, that sort of thing, and import them. But you can also go in and name all your hearing aids, whatever the heck you want to name them, set their wholesale costs, set their, and you can. It's all open structured that way too. Same with we've got divisions as far as regions, clinics, providers, rooms, all of that sort of thing, and that's all customizable. And then, but on top of that, the biggest thing is like getting the data out. That was one of my biggest frustrations with other systems that I'd used before. You could run some limited reports. You could have some limited reports automatically emailed to you, that kind of thing. But if I wanted to integrate with some other system, like let's say I wanted to go to Constant Contact, or I wanted to go to MailChimp, or anything that I was doing in the beginning of my journey, I couldn't do it because I couldn't get the information out reliably, and there was no open API. And I understand the risks of an automated program integration. But the way we attacked that is we went through Google Workspace, and through a HIPAA compliant account, you can maintain HIPAA compliance. And whereas like a lot of OMSs will charge you to export your data, we sync it daily with a Google Sheet. And then from there, that integrates with so many other things. You can do whatever you want, any dashboarding software, any marketing software out there. I mean, you need to make sure that you, as the practice owner, are maintaining HIPAA compliance within your relationships with those companies, but that's on you. And we trust you to do that because it's your data. And that to me is the biggest difference between Amplify and everything else out there. So,
okay. And that sort of gets me to the point of, look, please tell me everybody's at least off paper and using a digital OMS at this point.
Oh, no, you'd be surprised. And then you also, they're not using an actual OMS. There's a ton of people who are literally just using Google Calendar and Google Sheets to try and track all their stuff. And we run into them regularly. But the problem with that, you know what, you could do it. You could conceivably structure everything you needed to do, but the amount of work that would take to do it right is insane. And because the problem you run into, even with a great office management system, is people leave holes in your data. They don't fill out forms completely. They don't. And, somebody at your front desk who's answering your phone, not filling out a referral source when they're taking an appointment, may not seem like it's a big deal, but that is a huge deal on how you treat that person, if they don't accept treatment the day that they have a test, or even later in the patient journey, without knowing what part of your marketing spend generated that revenue, you've got a massive hole and you're going to make bad decisions. And that's a big part of it too. The workflow has to serve getting all the data filled out.
Well, I really I guess I have my fingers crossed that you were going to say, okay, everybody's already on a digital OMS. I'm still scratching my head at that in this day and age. But for the people that are out there that are more digitally inclined and they are using an OMS, why would you look? I'm sure there's going to be business owners that are listening to this and they're like, this sounds great, but the thought of going through that, the thought of things are humming along, or maybe they're not. And so the last thing I want to do is drop another bomb on the team and say, we're going to switch OMS. What's your counter argument to that?
Well, the counter argument is that in the process, it's going to take you 30 to 45 days for us to take all of your data from all of your different sources, stitch it all into one central database, bring it into Amplify, and teach you how to use it. That's going to take 30 to 45 days. But at the end of that 30 to 45 days, you're going to have one unified set of data across all records. That's every place that you touch everything. And then from there, you have one centralized communication hub where all information that's coming in and you're talking to your patients, whether it's through text message, phone call, email, Facebook Messenger, your website chat widget, everything is all integrated into one place and it stays there. And those conversations exist. And if you want to do call tracking and call recording, that sits inside your patient file and everything is all in one integrated place. And the biggest difference is that I would put Amplify OMS up against any office management system that's out there today. But one place where we're supremely different than everyone else is that we're not done and we never will be, because I'm running a practice and I always want it to be better and more profitable, and we can go on this journey together. That's what I say at that point.
Sure. I mean, look, that makes perfect sense. And if we just agree that maybe the 30 to 45 days, there'll be a little bit of pain, there'll be a little bit of pushback, but what I just heard you say is magical, because at the end of that journey, the light is so bright at the end of that tunnel that you're bringing it all under one system, because you're taking me through that process of like, oh, where did that person come from? Well, let's go to CallRail, and then let's go to our other tracking sheet, and then let's figure out how to piece all this puzzle back together. And what was the marketing spend? And it's like,
and do they have a NOAA file? Let's look at NOAA. What do they have? And like, all of these things are one thing, and that's marketing and data and patient experience. Why is there a separation? I mean, those are all the same thing. I mean, and in this day and age, it wasn't 20 years ago, but now the data you have on a patient affects how you market to them, which affects their experience, and it's all integrated. You know, or it needs to be.
Sure.
Anyway,
I'm with. Look, your passion says it all, and I will keep going back to, how does Dusty know? Because he uses it in his practice, and it's what has made him so successful. So let me ask you, what's next for you? What do you think is sort of your future and your contribution in the next, 3 months, 3 years?
So our next stage is for marketing automation, I used to use a system called Keep or Infusionsoft, which was a great platform. I know you have experience with it too.
Yep.
But there were some things about that weren't necessarily ideal. And so we're working on our own CRM, actually, and we've released it in my practice, but it'll be releasing to market probably about the end of June. And it's Amplify CRM Pro is what this one's called. And you actually do not have to be an Amplify OMS user to take advantage of it. So it's a marketing automation system that's set up with an entire hearing aid patient journey, from initial contact to regular upgrades, even to purging of files after 7 years, so that you can stay compliant, or 6 if your state doesn't have a 7-year law, 7 here in Texas. Anyway, but all the way through that process, the repurchase journey, the insurance renewal, serving them and dazzling them, and all that sort of stuff throughout is all packaged in a way that can be replicated practice after practice. And with any OMS that you're using, it does happen to live sync with Amplify OMS in real time, which is the only, but you could absolutely use any other system on the market and bring the data in. And
so how would it sync? How will it sync with other OMSs on a
It depends on what it's going to be OMS dependent, and anybody that wants to talk about it, we would just have to look at your system. But through every system out there, there's either a way to auto email out a CSV, and so we can just catch that at an email address and then parse the data as it comes through. Or there are some of them that actually do have APIs out there that we can grab onto as well. So it really depends on your system, but the worst case scenario, clicking and dragging Excel sheets once a week would take care of it too, but that's a very manual process that I would rather see someone avoid.
For an automation company, that certainly doesn't make sense. Using the word manual.
I don't like it. Yeah, but
it's like a cardinal sin to say the word manual at a automation company.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it could be done, but no, it's really going to depend on what you're working with.
Sure.
And because if you're not ready to make an OMS switch, that doesn't mean you don't want to take advantage of all the stuff that automated marketing can do for you.
Let's
doing both at once is the way to go.
So let's hit that point harder, right? Because changing OMS has its own challenges, and I would certainly encourage anybody to reach out and talk to Dusty about it, because I think some of our own limiting beliefs really put up a challenge that doesn't need to be there. And I know that you can sort of help people understand why it's worth the switch. But coming back to this other product, which is OMS agnostic, tell me more about this nurture marketing, right? These are words that have been around for a while. You and I have talked offline, and when we first met, it was when I was involved with another nurture marketing company, and I don't think that there's room for just one. There's room for lots of them. So I want to learn more about your approach to nurture marketing, your why, and how a business can take advantage of it, or maybe even why they should do it, because most aren't even doing it.
Right. So, and our profession tends to be a bit behind in terms of the way we communicate and the way we market and all that sort of thing.
Like 20 years, that's the number I've always heard, and I believe it.
I think you're right. And like where you're talking about spike marketing, which can have a great short-term payoff, but it in the long run, it's more expensive than anything else you can do. So in today's marketplace, before someone makes a purchase decision, they're going to do a little research. I mean, and where they're going to go 9 times out of 10 these days is Google. And so, I mean, you need to have a solid, organic SEO strategy, a pay-per-click strategy for that. But then also, once they hit that, where are they going? Which the answer is going to be to some sort of a landing page. Hopefully not just your big brochure website that's a million things. It needs to be, a landing page that is speaking to what the initial communication they clicked on was. But then once they get there, first off, there are still tracking pixels you can use on your website that can produce an address, email address, and phone number on about 20% of your website visitors. And so, like, one thing that I do is when somebody comes to my landing page, they're going to get a postcard in the mail inviting them to come to my office in 3 days. Now, of course, that is not going to reference the fact they went to my website. That would be creepy. The timing is just fortuitous. So that's, step number one. But also on that landing page, you're going to have a form where you want them to fill out for more information. And when they come in, you need to make sure that form is segmented and tagged so you know whether they're coming in for a free hearing test offer or a lunch and learn offer or whatever the landing page happens to be speaking to.
Or tinnitus or in terms of clarity, whatever your messaging is. Right now you're hitting a much deeper point, which is another podcast, which is making sure internal and external marketing match. Right. Like, talk to me about tinnitus and clarity on my website and on my opt-in forms. And then if I come in and you start telling me that there's a 30-day test drive, like, what? Whoa.
Well, yeah. Then your in person is even off from it. So you've got to know in the flow what they are when they're coming through. And the same is true. Now, many of them are just going to set an appointment. They're going to come in, they're going to accept treatment for whatever you're doing, and they're going to move on. But that set that doesn't, a lot of them will take 2-3 years. And you can nudge them along, but throwing them into a traditional tested not sold mailer once a year is not the way to do it. First off, I am now 5 years ago, if you told me I should have been text messaging my patients, I would have told you you're crazy. But I'm here to tell you right now, response rate to text messages is astronomically higher than email, and email's about as good as mail. So what we do is we mainly attempt to get that cell phone number on the way in. And then from there, we've got 52 text messages that we send out, spaced out 7, 8, 6 days so that they're not like every Monday. It doesn't feel all routine. And most of those text messages that are going through are just informative. Hey, here's some famous people with hearing loss. Here's the history of hearing aids and how they started out. A lot of informative, like, just nurture type content. And brings them to a landing page, of course. And that landing page in that nurture series, rarely in that first year is it ever trying to sell them anything. All I'm trying to do is build credibility, show them that I'm the expert in my marketplace. And when they're ready to make a decision, that they make the decision with me having top of mind awareness. That's really my goal there. So anyway, as they're going through now, as soon as they make an appointment, of course, they're out of that nurture sequence, but you need to be hitting them, by text message, ideally, email, and then, drop some mail if you can, if you've got the address information over that first year. And then after that, once they're out of that first year sequence, if you're the type of practice that does have sale events, that sort of thing, that's when you really hit those people. But in the beginning, you're just developing a relationship. Life is social and all business is local at the end of the day. So, and I wouldn't be any more aggressive than I would be talking to somebody, in line to get a sandwich about hearing you have to be careful how you do it.
Definitely. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh my God, you text once a week. I'm texting information. I'm texting education. Let the patient opt in when they opted in once. They want some information when they're ready. But look, I know why you did this, because right now the problem in our industry is come in for the free turkey or don't.
Yeah.
Come in for the free trial or don't, right? There's got to be at least one more option, which is, or learn a little bit more about us. Learn a little bit more about your medical condition, right? So now we're up to 4 options. Yes. So, I mean, there's so many ways that we can help to get people from that, they say everybody waits 7 to 10 years. That's our problem, right? The reason they're waiting, it's our fault. So how are we going to fix it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say what you're doing there, I mean, the overarching of all those goals, your goal is to get them to develop a relationship with your practice and to acknowledge your place in your community. And now that needs to be legitimate once they come in the door, and you need to really do those things. I mean, that's critical too. I can't take anything away from that. And then from all the technical side, it's, I want to bring you to a landing page every 30 days so the Facebook pixel still knows that you're in my target audience so that I can serve up social media ads to you. And that's why I want to keep you hitting my website. These things are all technical, and most practice owners aren't going to learn all this stuff. So we build it into one system. And that's what the CRM Pro is all about.
Very cool. Very cool. So, so look, Dusty, I appreciate your time. I appreciate, your passion. It kind of bums me out thinking that it's been so long since we first met. But I hope next time I'm in Dallas, whether it be for one of the neuro boot camps or something, we can meet up and share a coffee or a whiskey, whatever your pleasure is.
Either way, or both, a coffee or both.
There you go. Excellent. Right. Thank you so much for being here. I guess, look, everybody got to learn a lot about Dusty's professional side, the journey you've been on. I think you're right. We've got at least 3 more podcasts from this discussion to spin off, which we will schedule in the future. But let's leave everybody with something personal about Dusty. What is your favorite drink?
Oh man, I am a Jameson on the rocks guy. I'm nice and simple. Now I am very much, I'm a whiskey drinker. But it's I don't need anything fancy. Just a nice Jameson from County Cork in Ireland is that's my fave. So
I actually stayed in the house that Jameson was brought up in.
Nice.
In Ireland.
Nice.
So,
yes. Great.
Thank you so much, Dusty. Appreciate you very much.